I'm getting really tired of misleading headlines, and today's story is especially frustrating because today's story begins with misleading headlines that spawned in part from other misleading headlines. I'll explain what I mean. Check these out. All talk, no action, says Trump in Twitter attack on civil rights icon. Why Trump's attack on John Lewis came at a particularly bad time. Trump's attack on Representative John Lewis spotlights tenuous relationship with African Americans. Trump's attack. I guess that's not technically wrong, but what they're referencing is Donald Trump saying on Twitter that Congressman John Lewis should focus on fixing his district, which Trump says is in horrible shape. Like many people, I do wish the president-elect would close his Twitter app more often. I do wish he would get a thicker skin. I do wish he would concern himself with more important things, but surely that tweet had to come from somewhere, right? Is it really an attack if it's a response to an accusation? Put it this way, if I tweet at Donald Trump, "Hey, you orangutan loser, I think you suck," and he responds, "I looked at your channel. Terrible jokes. Views in the toilet. Sad." Has Donald Trump really attacked me? Or has he just responded to what I said? And that's the fact pattern here. Congressman John Lewis initiated and Donald Trump responded. It seems to me these headlines are driven not by the facts at issue in this case, but by the knee-jerk reaction to defend John Lewis, especially over the Martin Luther King Day weekend, a man who marched alongside MLK in pursuit of the same cause in the civil rights era. My guess is these news outlets fear that appearing critical of John Lewis today will somehow be confused with criticizing what he did 50 years ago, but a man's good deeds of yesterday don't make his words of today gospel, and what John Lewis said to prompt Donald Trump is well worthy of criticism. John Lewis sat down with Chuck Todd of Meet the Press at the end of last week to discuss, among other things, Trump's upcoming inauguration and presidency. In that interview, John Lewis made the bold accusation not that Trump will be a bad president or an ineffective president, but that he's an illegitimate president, that he shouldn't be president at all.
You have forged relationships with many presidents. Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
You know, I believe in forgiveness. I believe in trying to work with people. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult. I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president.
And why might John Lewis say that Trump's presidency is illegitimate? Well, there's only one universal scapegoat, one get out of introspection free card that always gets played. You know the one.
Why is that?
I think the Russians.
But more specifically, it is John Lewis's opinion that the Russian government organized a conspiracy to elect Donald Trump president. It was a moral injustice John Lewis can't tolerate, and one that will make his cooperation with this president nearly impossible.
I think there was a conspiracy on the part of the Russians and others to help him get elected. That's not right. That's not fair. You cannot be at home with something that you feel that is wrong.
He's not legitimate, though. How do you accept working with him under any circumstance?
Well, it's going to be very hard and very difficult, almost impossible for me to work with him.
The biggest issue I take with John Lewis's stance is the lack of precision in his accusations. What exactly is John Lewis alleging here? His accusations are imprecise, as are many recent headlines on the issue. Obama sanctions Russian officials over election hacking. White House sanctions Russia over election hacks. House Democrats to offer bill on Russia vote hacking. Is that what happened here? The Russians hacked the election itself? Did Russia alter the vote count? Did Putin's men vote? Or did Russian hackers change the vote tallies in the machines? No. Let's take what the intelligence community says as true for the purpose of this discussion. Russia did not hack the election. Russia did not hack the vote. If you trust the intelligence community, Russian actors acquired information through hacking, which was later distributed to influence the vote, to influence the decisions you and I made. But there's no evidence to support the implication that Russian actors altered the count of the decisions you and I made. So what John Lewis is upset about isn't even hacking per se. What John Lewis is upset about is illegitimately obtained information being distributed in a way that influences voter decisions. I can agree that foreign actors obtaining private information and electioneering with it is probably a bad thing. But I can't agree that this was a unique event that worked only in Donald Trump's favor. If publishing the DNC and Podesta emails is a moral outrage, why isn't John Lewis concerned with the Billy Bush bus tape?
Grab him by the pussy.
Why isn't John Lewis concerned with the New York Times publishing Trump's tax documents? These are all examples of private information obtained through illegitimate means, published publicly for the purpose of influencing an election. And funny, John Lewis only cares about the one that works against his political persuasion. Looks like sour grapes to me. I think he was actually sucking on a mouthful during this interview. There's one more comment from John Lewis during this interview that irritates me.
That's not right. That's not fair. That's not the open democratic process.
Think about what he's saying here. He's saying this election was undemocratic because there was too much information available. It wasn't openly democratic because it was too open. Democratic Party bosses should have been secure and private in their effort to undermine a fair primary process and rig the system in favor of one candidate. These are the faces of open democracy.
Your information is totally false. You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found that was in the gutter.
We may find a security issue here. We may find an ethical issue here. But to say that more information made this election less democratic, I just don't follow the argument. But I've saved the best for last. The problem with John Lewis's case isn't just that it's loose with the facts. It's that it's also wildly hypocritical. You may remember similar circumstances 4 or 5 years ago when President Obama was about to begin his second term, and Republicans faced criticism for obstructionism and refusal to cooperate. What was John Lewis's opinion on that?
We should not put all of the blame or the burden on the President of the United States. If the members of the majority in the House that cooperated and worked with him, we would be much better off. They made a decision on the night that he was inaugurated, the evening of the day that he was inaugurated, that they would not cooperate. They would not let him succeed. This president has been treated with a great deal of disrespect and non-cooperation.
So if Republicans view President Obama as illegitimate and immoral and oppose him upon inauguration, that's an act of disrespect and they need to get in line. But when John Lewis views President Trump as illegitimate and immoral and opposes him upon inauguration, that's because John Lewis is a principled hero. And that's the line we go with. John Lewis gets praise as a hero who is standing up to injustice. And of course, I grant that he has, over the course of his lifetime, done just that. But what's the injustice today? The injustice that his side lost the election? If instead it's Hillary's upcoming inauguration, does John Lewis care about the Russians at all? Is his concern with cybersecurity based in principle? Or is it based in political convenience? Is it actually the process that worries him? Or just the outcome? I have my opinion, but I'll leave it at that. My opinion only goes so far because despite my opinion, I do in fact accept that John Lewis is a legitimate congressman. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.